Greetings. This is the one you've known as Jesus the Christ. Several insidious assumptions underlie the ego's perspective, which veil the truth about life and cause much of the suffering inherent in the human condition. We're going to examine some of the assumptions that hold the ego's map of reality in place. Hopefully, this will make adopting a truer map much easier. Two small words are responsible for a lot of human suffering: could and should. Let's first take a look at one of these little words that has so much power: could. Of course, you need this word to communicate, and in many instances it's useful. You could do or say any number of things. Anything really could be possible in the future, and it's useful to see this. It allows you to be open to many possibilities. The problem with could is not in its pointing to future possibilities, but when people use it in speaking about the past. It could have been different. This is always a lie, and the cause of a great deal of unnecessary regret, sadness, anger, guilt, and shame. So let's examine this. Could the past have been different if you or something else had been different? In that previous moment, you could only have been exactly as you were, just as in this moment you can only be exactly as you are right now. The same is true of every other aspect of that previous moment. It could only have been exactly as it was. A precise set of circumstances, conditioning, and choices, too numerous to comprehend, led up to that moment and made it what it was. Many elements beyond your control or anyone else's would have had to have been different for that moment to have been different. Could the past have been different? That's a useless hypothetical question. What happened in the past was what it was, and no amount of speculation can change that. This rumination about reality is just the mind's way of not accepting a former now, and its way of taking you out of the current now. Could isn't applicable to the past, and it hurts to think about the past this way. The reason it hurts is because that's life's way of telling you that you're believing a lie. Lies hurt. The ego doesn't accept much of what happened in the past any more than it accepts what's happening now. However, the only means the ego has to try to change the past is thoughts. So it thinks about the past. What if? If only. I should have. I wish. But these thoughts are powerless to change the past. All they do is make you miserable. The problem with the ego is this very lack of acceptance. It resists life unless life happens to be showing up in a way that pleases the ego, which does sometimes occur. But mostly life happens without regard for the ego's preferences. There's life as it is, reality, and life as your ego would like it to be, fantasy. The ego lives in a world of could be, should be, and might be, a world divorced from reality, while life is what it is. Anything except what's actually happening now is just a thought about reality, not reality. What was said about could is also true about should. Life should be different. The past should have been different. Who says? The ego does, and if you believe this, you'll suffer. This thought, life should be different, is not a basic truth, but the ego's demand for an ideal world that doesn't exist and never will. This declaration is just a thought in the thought stream, the ego railing against reality. Where does this thought stream come from? Does it speak the truth? Where does the truth about life reside? These are questions you have to answer for yourself. The hero is willing to explore and find out what is really true. If the truth lies in the thought stream, then the thought stream should be trustworthy. But is it? How true is it really? If it's only sometimes true, you have a problem. Then how do you determine what is true and what isn't? What is truth anyway? Isn't truth something that can actually be known, not something that's simply assumed to be true? When you define truth as what is actually known, then not that much is true. What can be known for certain is generally what is true according to your current sensory experience, without the mind's interpretation or spin. In a particular moment, for instance, it may be true that the sky is blue, but to say much more than that about the sky in that moment is more like a story, a spin given to this simple fact. The thought stream might offer the following: the sky isn't as blue as usual. The sky is bluer in fall than spring. The sky is prettier when it's bluer. The sky isn't blue often enough. None of these statements the mind might come up with is absolutely true, and some are just opinions. Statements in the thought stream such as these often pass as facts, as the truth. However, the truth is much simpler. The sky is blue, period. As for past events, something either happened or it didn't. There's no could or should about it. Coulds and shoulds relating to a past event can never be true. When should shows up in the thought stream, it indicates a desire for reality to be different than it is. Life shouldn't be so hard. He shouldn't have said that. I should be thinner. The truth is, wanting life to be different has nothing to do with reality and has little influence on it, except that wanting causes discontentment, and then that becomes your experience of reality. Wanting anything other than what's showing up in reality spoils the moment, which is all anyone ever has. If you cling to the ego's ideas about what it wants life to be, rather than accept life as it is, you'll be unhappy. The word should signals a false assumption, so it's an important word in the thought stream to become aware of if you want to be free from suffering and live in reality. There isn't a single statement with that word in it that is true or useful. If you want to suffer, then hang on to your shoulds. If you find yourself thinking a thought with should in it, don't believe it. Should is a direct rejection of reality. It's like saying no to what is. No, it should be this way instead. No, he should be this way instead. No, I should be this way instead. Instead of what? Instead of the way it is, he is, I am. Instead of the way things really are. Because the ego wants things to be different, it pretends they can be, but they can't. If an airplane is flying overhead, could that be different? Does saying it should be different change anything? It's too late for that moment to be any different than it is. The now has already moved on, and the airplane is no longer overhead. Could the airplane be overhead now, or should it be? Why bother with thoughts like these? You can even suffer over airplanes coming and going if you choose to. Believing a could or a should is a choice, and that choice leads to suffering. Once you know this, if you don't want to be unhappy, there's only one choice to make. Suffering is something you can do something about. If you believe the thought stream, you'll be unhappy, and if you don't believe it, you won't be unhappy. When you believe a lie, you will suffer, and when you don't, you won't. Let your suffering be a signal that points you back to the lie that caused it. Learn from your suffering. Learn which thoughts to not take seriously. Notice those thoughts, and then return to reality, the present moment. Could and should are both pretenses at control. The ego doesn't like the fact that it has so little control over life. Instead of accepting this, the ego pretends that this isn't true. It pretends that its desires and ideas shape life, or should be able to shape life. It believes in could and should. These two little words help create and maintain the ego's illusion of control over life, as do the ego's desires. The ego's desires are the desires expressed in the thought stream. These seem like your desires, but they're actually the desires of your programming, including the desires of your animal nature, such as the desires for comfort, safety, food, and sex. Other deeper desires stem from your true nature. You might put those desires into words at some point, but they don't initially show up in the thought stream. They show up more subtly in your body and are felt or known on a deep level. When these deeper desires are thought about or expressed, they feel right and good, unlike the ego's desires, which generally don't feel good. For instance, the thought, "I want a new car," or "I want a relationship," carries a sense of lack and unhappiness, a need for something. That sense of needing something to be happy doesn't feel good. On the other hand, a deeper desire, such as the longing to expand yourself by studying or creating something, feels exciting, good, and inspiring when you put it into words and think about it. These positive feelings are how you can tell the true desires from the false ones, the true selves from the egos. There's nothing wrong with following the ego's desires. In fact, you're meant to some extent, because that's how you learn about life. It's just that the ego's desires are not what they seem to be. They're not what makes life be the way it is, although they shape life a little. The ego, however, seems to be under the impression that its desires and ideas are what shape life. This false assumption needs examining. The ego puts itself at the center of the universe, and it sees its desires and ideas as central to that universe, when the opposite is true. The ego is not in control, and its ideas, fantasies, and desires mean little in terms of what actually shows up in life. Your ideas and desires, however, are crucial in determining how happy you'll be. To the extent that you require life to match them, you'll suffer. That's the truth about them. The ego has it backwards. Your ideas and desires are not helping you be a happier and better person. Rather, they're preventing you from that. When you drop your ideas and desires, you drop into the present moment, into reality, and instantly align with your true nature and become all that you ever wanted to be, complete, happy, at peace, content, wise, and loving. You are already what you want to be. But believing that you are the you that desires and struggles to control life keeps you from discovering the truth about yourself. The truth about life is that you don't need the control the ego assumes it needs, because something is in control that is good and wise and has your best interests at heart. Once you stop trying to control life, you discover that everything is already under control and always has been by a benevolent force that has you in its heart, because it is you. You are its reflection in human form and dearly beloved. Just as I, the Son, am a reflection of the Father, so is each of you. Thank you for being here. I am with you always.